श्री परमात्मने नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता sadhakasanjivani 9th chapter, the most confidential knowledge, verses 7 to 10. Description of new creation and final dissolution. In verse 6, Lord Krishna explained that all beings dwell in him, but he did not explain their new creation and final dissolution, which are going to be explained in the next two verses. Verse 7. Sarva bhutani kantya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshay punastani kalpadau visrijami aham. All beings of Kantya go into my Prakriti at the end of a kalpa, Brahma's day, and I generate them again at the beginning of the next kalpa. Comment. Brahma's day is called kalpa, which extends for 1,000 fourfold yugas, ages. His night is also of the same period. Brahma lives for 100 years. When Brahma's life period is over, he merges into the Lord, which is called the end of a kalpa. And when he emanates from the Lord, that is the beginning of a kalpa. Here it is mentioned that all beings go into his Prakriti at the end of a kalpa, but he generates them again at the beginning of the next kalpa. It means that Prakriti, being active when gets tired, merges into God itself, and beings having affinity with Prakriti also merge in it at the time of final dissolution. But at the time of new creation, the Lord brings forth those beings who had affinity with Prakriti again by giving them the fruit of their mature actions in order to purify them. As an architect builds a house, but it falls into ruin itself, the Lord brings forth beings, but they die themselves. In the same way, a man's soul, being a portion of the Lord, has natural inclination for the Lord, but he has a fall himself by having desires and attachment for the perishable body and world. So, a striver, by attaching importance to discrimination, by renouncing desires and attachment, should be inclined towards the Lord. Verse 8. Prakritim swam avashtabhya visrijami punha punha bhuta gramam imam krisanam avasham prakritirvashat. Laying hold of my nature, I bring forth again and again this whole multitude of beings, subject to the influence of their own nature. Comment. At final dissolution, all beings merge in nature, and nature merges into the Lord. But at the beginning of creation, when the actions of those beings become mature to bear fruit, the Lord has his pursuit of mind to become manifold from one. So there is commotion in nature. When curd is churned, butter and buttermilk become separate. Out of them butter flows over buttermilk. Here butter is sattvika, buttermilk is tamas, and the action of churning is rajas. Similarly, from the commotion in Prakriti, nature, also the three attributes, qualities, goodness, activity, passion, and inertia, ignorance, are born. Out of the three modes, heaven, this mortal world, and the underworld are born. In these three worlds, beings are born according to their actions and nature. At dissolution, the soul merges into God, but it does not attain emancipation because it merges having its modes. Had it renounced its modes, it might have emancipated forever and would have not undergone the wheel of birth and death. Here, one point is to be understood. The Lord brings forth only those beings who have become slave to their nature by having affinity of I and mine with personal nature, body. On being a slave to his personal nature, he becomes a slave to the cosmic nature. In case he is not a slave to such cosmic nature, he is not reborn. A man is bound by actions when he is attached to them or accepts himself as the doer. But the Lord is not bound by actions. Why? The clarification comes in the next verse. Verse 9. Na cha mam tani karmani nibadhananti dhananjaya udasina vad asinam asaktam teshu karmasu. The Lord is not attached to the action which he performs in bringing forth the whole multitude of beings, because he remains like one unattached and indifferent. That is, he is not happy at creation and sad at dissolution. Why has the Lord said that he remains like one unattached and indifferent? The term like has been used because God knows the fact that actions, etc., have no existence of their own besides him. So, how can he remain unconcerned and unattached to his own self? So, the term like has been used for the person who remains indifferent and unattached to them by accepting their independent existence. In the preceding verse, the Lord declared, I bring forth beings repeatedly. The Lord is not bound by the actions because he has not the least affinity with the actions and their fruit. The Lord, by saying so, advises human beings that they will also not be bound by actions if they perform them without having attachment for them and their fruit. Otherwise, they will have to be bound and follow the wheel of birth and death. How surprising it is that a man is bound by having affinity with those actions and their fruits, things and men, etc., that perish. The mundane objects do not remain, but affinity with them persists. The men die, but affinity with them remains. How foolish of him! After describing detachment and indifference in the previous verse, now Lord Krishna describes how he is non-doer, the supervisor. Verse 10. Maya dhakshena prakritiha swayate sacharacharam hetu nanena kantya jagad viparivartate. O son of Kunti, with me as the supervisor, nature brings forth the whole creation, both animate and inanimate. The world therefore revolves. Comment. The Lord animates nature to bring forth the whole creation, as different machines such as refrigerators, heaters, trains, lifts, televisions and x-rays, etc. function with the power of electricity. The creation, preservation, destruction and all the mundane activities are performed by nature with the power of God, who animates nature and himself remains as the supervisor. It means that as the electric power manifests itself through machines, the Lord's power manifests itself through nature. The Lord is the actionless supervisor while the world revolves, that is, the world undergoes changes. These changes will continue to occur so long as beings have their affinity of I-ness and mindness for nature and its evolutes, bodies, etc. And thus they will go on revolving in the path of the mortal world. It means that without God realization, they can't rest permanently anywhere. Nature revolves them in the path of birth and death. Om Tat Sat. All glories to Sri Partha Sarthi, Lord Shri Krishna. All glories to Bhagavad Vani, SrimadbhagvadGeeta. Sri Hari Arpanamastu.